Long before the world's great empires rose, above the clouds, where the air grows thin and mountains scrape the heavens, a humble plant quietly began changing human history. Hidden among the rocky slopes of the Andes, the ancestor of the modern potato survived where few crops could. Its story would one day feed billions, fuel revolutions, and reshape civilization itself. Thousands of years ago, hunter-gatherers noticed something remarkable beneath these delicate flowers. Hidden underground grew swollen tubers packed with precious calories, nature's secret storehouse waiting to be discovered. Unlike grains that demanded fertile valleys, these underground treasures thrived in freezing nights, poor soil, and violent mountain weather. Survival itself had chosen the potato. Generation after generation, Andean families selected the strongest plants. Without realizing it, they became some of humanity's first agricultural scientists, slowly transforming a wild mountain survivor into a dependable crop. Across impossible mountain slopes, people carved vast terraces into stone. Here, high above the valleys, the potato became more than food. It became the foundation of an entire civilization. To the peoples of the Andes, the earth itself was alive. Every harvest honored Pachamama, the sacred Mother Earth, whose generosity sustained every family through the harsh mountain seasons. As villages expanded into kingdoms, potatoes became the empire's invisible strength. Every successful harvest meant more workers, more soldiers, and greater ambition. The Inca built thousands of mountain storehouses where potatoes could be preserved for years. Food became strategy, and strategy became power. High mountain nights froze the potatoes solid. Warm daytime sun dried them naturally. This ancient process created chuño, a lightweight food capable of lasting for decades. With food that resisted time itself, armies could march farther than ever before. Roads expanded across mountains, connecting one of history's greatest civilizations. Ingenious irrigation channels carried glacial water across impossible terrain. Human determination and nature worked together in extraordinary harmony. Long before supermarkets offered endless choices, Andean farmers cultivated thousands of potato varieties: purple, blue, red, black, and gold, each adapted to different climates and soils. Far beyond the mountains, unknown ships crossed unfamiliar oceans. The peaceful rhythm of Andean life was about to collide with a world it had never imagined. The potato had conquered the mountains. Soon, it would begin its greatest journey, not across valleys, but across oceans, forever altering the fate of humanity. In the 16th century, the Atlantic Ocean ceased to be a barrier and became a bridge. Silver, disease, animals, ideas, and crops began moving between continents in an exchange so powerful that historians would later call it one of the greatest turning points in human history. Hidden among those treasures was a rough, dirty tuber no king had asked for. Gold captured attention. Silver commanded armies. Exotic spices inspired dreams. But the potato looked ordinary, mud-covered, misshapen, and unimpressive. Nobody on that ship could imagine that this humble root would one day prove more valuable than treasure. Many foods spoiled during long ocean voyages. Grain rotted. Fresh fruit vanished within weeks. But potatoes endured. Buried in darkness below deck, they quietly demonstrated the resilience that had once allowed them to survive the Andes. When the ships finally reached Europe, the potato arrived not as a conqueror, but as a curiosity. It entered ports unnoticed, carrying no banners, demanding no attention, asking only for soil. Europeans had never seen anything quite like it, a plant related to deadly nightshade, bearing poisonous-looking berries and hiding its edible portion underground. To many, it appeared suspicious from the very beginning. For a time, the potato existed more as an oddity than a crop. It appeared in botanical collections and royal gardens, admired for its unusual flowers rather than its ability to feed nations. Europe saw beauty above the soil. but failed to recognize the miracle beneath it. The true power of the potato remained hidden underground, waiting for hunger to reveal its worth. A few farmers began experimenting. They discovered a remarkable truth. This foreign crop produced astonishing amounts of food from surprisingly little land. Quietly, almost invisibly, the potato began taking root in Europe. Europe had received one of the most important crops in human history, but it did not know it yet. Before the potato could save millions, it would first have to overcome fear, superstition, and misunderstanding. The potato had crossed an ocean, but winning Europe's trust would prove far more difficult. Its twisted roots, poisonous berries, and strange place beneath the soil made many believe it was unnatural. In villages across the continent, suspicion spread faster than curiosity. Botanists quickly recognized the potato's family resemblance to deadly nightshade, a plant known for poison and hallucinations. Though the edible tubers were perfectly safe, fear ignored science. To many Europeans, the potato looked guilty simply because of its relatives. Some people made a deadly mistake. They tasted the berries growing above the ground instead of the hidden tubers beneath it. The poisonous fruit caused illness, reinforcing the belief that the entire plant was dangerous. Across much of Europe, potatoes found their first purpose not on dinner tables, but in feeding livestock. Farmers considered them suitable for pigs and cattle, hardly worthy of human consumption. For the poorest families, hunger often outweighed superstition. Some quietly began cooking the strange root, discovering that beneath its rough skin was nourishment unlike anything they had known before. Rumors spread from village to village. Some claimed potatoes caused disease. Others insisted they brought laziness or even moral decay. Without evidence, myths grew stronger than truth. Many fertile fields remained empty while famine threatened nearby communities. The crop capable of saving lives stood rejected, trapped beneath layers of fear and misunderstanding. Not everyone dismissed the potato. A handful of physicians, botanists, and forward-thinking scholars studied the crop carefully. They saw what others could not, a plant capable of feeding entire populations through hard times. Slowly, the conversation began to change. If ordinary people would not trust the potato, perhaps kings and queens could persuade them. The future of Europe's food supply was about to become a matter of royal prestige. By the 18th century, Europe's rulers faced a difficult reality. Wars had emptied granaries, populations were rising, and harvest failures threatened unrest. If kingdoms were to survive, they needed a crop that could feed more people from less land. The humble potato suddenly became a matter of national security. Among the potato's greatest champions was the French pharmacist Antoine-Augustin Parmentier. Captured during war, he had survived on potatoes while imprisoned in Prussia. Instead of fearing the crop, he returned convinced it could save France from hunger. Parmentier understood that facts alone would never change minds. He needed influence. If royalty embraced the potato, ordinary people might follow. Soon, potato flowers began appearing where no one expected, in the finest circles of French society. King Louis XVI joined the campaign, placing potato blossoms in his own coat. Together, the king and queen transformed an unwanted crop into a symbol of royal fashion, curiosity, and prestige. Parmentier's greatest idea was psychological. He planted potato fields near Paris and surrounded them with royal guards during the day. To everyone watching, the crop suddenly looked incredibly valuable. But every evening, the guards quietly disappeared. Villagers slipped through the fences and stole the potatoes, believing they had outsmarted the authorities. Exactly as Parmentier intended, the crop spread itself through human curiosity. Within a generation, the potato no longer belonged to kings or scientists. It belonged to ordinary families. Fields expanded across France, Prussia, and beyond, producing harvests large enough to feed populations that grain alone never could. Without battles or speeches, the potato had achieved something extraordinary. It transformed Europe's food supply, strengthened nations, and prepared the continent for an age of explosive growth. The greatest revolution of the 18th century was happening not only in palaces, but beneath the soil. As factory chimneys rose above Europe's skyline, another revolution was unfolding beneath the soil. Steam engines may have powered machines, but potatoes powered the people. Cheap, nutritious, and reliable, they gave millions of workers the energy to leave the countryside and build a new industrial world. Before sunrise, factory workers gathered around simple meals. Bread was expensive, meat was scarce, but boiled potatoes filled empty stomachs, providing enough energy to endure 12 or even 16 hours of relentless labor. Every morning, rivers of people flowed toward textile mills, iron foundries, and coal mines. Hidden inside countless lunch sacks was the same dependable companion, the potato, feeding the workforce that powered an empire of machines. An acre of potatoes produced far more food than an acre of grain. That remarkable efficiency meant fewer farmers could feed more people, freeing millions to become miners, engineers, inventors, and factory workers. The Industrial Revolution connected nations with iron rails. Along those same tracks traveled millions of potatoes, feeding rapidly growing cities that could no longer grow enough food for themselves. Markets overflowed with potatoes, sold at prices even the poorest workers could afford. What had once been dismissed as peasant food was now quietly supporting Europe's exploding urban population. With better nutrition came healthier children, lower mortality, and rapidly growing populations. Across Europe, the potato quietly became one of the invisible engines behind demographic expansion. Success carried its own danger. As populations soared, entire nations became increasingly dependent on a single crop. Few noticed the risk. After all, the potato had never failed them before. The potato had helped build modern Europe. It fed factories, fueled cities, and transformed economies. But beneath the green leaves, an invisible enemy was already waiting. A tiny organism would soon bring one of history's greatest food disasters and reveal the danger of depending on a single harvest. By the middle of the 19th century, the potato had become Europe's greatest agricultural success. Entire villages depended upon it. Families planted the same trusted varieties year after year, believing reliability was strength. Yet beneath this prosperity lay a dangerous illusion. Diversity had quietly disappeared. For thousands of years, Andean farmers had cultivated hundreds of potato varieties. If one failed, another survived. But across Europe, efficiency replaced diversity. Vast fields were planted with genetically similar potatoes, leaving entire nations exposed to a single invisible threat. It arrived without warning. A microscopic water mold called Phytophthora infestans drifted through cool, damp air. Invisible to the human eye, it landed upon healthy leaves and quietly began destroying the crop that millions depended upon.
At first, farmers noticed only a few dark patches. Within days, healthy green fields transformed into blackened wastelands. Underground, the potatoes softened into foul-smelling rot before they could even be harvested. Families dug with hope, but uncovered despair. Basket after basket revealed nothing but rotten tubers. The crop that had always answered hunger now offered only silence. Disease respected no borders. Week after week, the blight spread across Belgium, Germany, France, Scotland, and Ireland. Every passing storm carried new waves of destruction. Nowhere was dependence greater than Ireland. Millions of people survived almost entirely on potatoes because the crop could produce extraordinary nutrition from tiny plots of rented land. When the harvest failed, there was no alternative waiting. As food disappeared, every remaining healthy plant became precious. Farmers searched desperately for untouched fields, praying that somewhere the disease had not yet arrived. But hope grew smaller with every passing day. The potato had built families, cities, and nations. Now, its collapse threatened to undo them all. Europe stood on the edge of catastrophe, But nowhere would the coming tragedy strike harder than in Ireland. The Great Hunger was about to begin. In the autumn of 1845, Irish families returned to their fields, expecting another dependable harvest. Instead, they found blackened leaves, foul-smelling earth, and potatoes dissolving into slime beneath the soil. The crop that had sustained generations had vanished almost overnight, and with it disappeared the certainty of tomorrow. For millions of Irish laborers, the potato was not simply one food among many. It was nearly everything. A single failed harvest meant empty kitchens, hungry children, and impossible choices. Families divided their last remaining potatoes into smaller and smaller portions, hoping somehow to survive another week. As the blight returned year after year, hunger became famine. Villages emptied, livestock disappeared, roads filled with families searching for food that no longer existed. Across Ireland, starvation spread with terrifying speed. Charities, churches, and temporary soup kitchens struggled to meet overwhelming demand. Every bowl offered another day of life, but there were never enough meals for everyone waiting in line. With little hope remaining, hundreds of thousands chose the sea. Overcrowded emigrant ships carried Irish families toward North America. Many never reached their destination. Disease, hunger, and exhaustion turned these vessels into what survivors would forever remember as coffin ships. The Atlantic offered no guarantee of survival. Storms battered fragile ships, disease spread through cramped quarters, and many passengers arrived weakened beyond recovery. Yet hope remained stronger than fear. For those aboard, reaching America meant the possibility of beginning again. When survivors reached North America, they brought little with them except resilience, memory, and the determination to rebuild their lives. Irish communities would help shape the cities of Boston, New York, Montreal, and beyond, forever changing the history of two continents. The Great Hunger claimed roughly 1 million lives and forced another million to emigrate. Entire villages vanished, languages faded, traditions were interrupted. The famine became more than an agricultural disaster. It became a defining wound in Irish history that would echo across generations. The potato itself was never the enemy. The tragedy came from dependence without diversity, from placing the survival of millions into a single vulnerable crop. Out of unimaginable loss emerged one of agriculture's greatest lessons. Resilience grows strongest when nature remains diverse. The Great Hunger changed agriculture forever. Farmers, scientists, and governments realized that no civilization could depend upon a single variety of crop. From the ashes of famine came a new commitment to diversity, research, and resilience. The potato story was no longer ending. It was beginning again. Across Europe and the Americas, botanists searched for stronger potato varieties. They crossbred plants, studied diseases, and preserved rare genetic lines. Every experiment carried the hope of preventing another catastrophe, like the Irish famine. Deep within the Andes, indigenous farming communities continued protecting thousands of native potato varieties. Their ancestors had understood a timeless truth: diversity was nature's greatest defense against uncertainty. Steamships and railroads carried potatoes farther than ever before. From Europe, they spread into Asia, Africa, and Oceania, adapting to climates and cultures far beyond the mountains where their story first began. The potato thrived wherever harsh conditions challenged other crops. From the Himalayas to the Ethiopian highlands, from the mountains of China to the Andes once again, it became a dependable source of food for millions. As the 20th century unfolded, the world's population expanded at an unprecedented pace. Once again, the potato answered humanity's call. Rich in calories, vitamins, and adaptable to many climates, it helped nourish rapidly growing nations. Today, the potato ranks among humanity's most important staple foods, standing beside rice, wheat, and maize. Every year, hundreds of millions of tons are harvested across more than 100 countries, feeding billions of people. What once saved civilizations from starvation became woven into everyday life. Potatoes transformed into countless regional dishes, from Irish coal cannon and Peruvian causa to Indian aloo curry, German kartoffel salad, and Canadian poutine. The humble tuber became a shared language of comfort across cultures. Born in the high Andes, carried across oceans, rejected through fear, embraced through necessity, and transformed through science, the potato had become truly global. Few plants in history have traveled so far or changed so many lives. Yet its journey was still not complete.
The 20th century transformed the potato once again. No longer harvested only for local markets, it entered vast factories where washing, sorting, peeling, and processing turned a simple farm crop into one of the world's largest food industries. The ancient Andean root had become a global commodity. Although fried potatoes had existed for centuries, the 20th century transformed them into a global phenomenon. Crispy on the outside and soft within, the French fry became the perfect companion to an increasingly fast-moving world. A breakthrough in freezing technology changed everything. Frozen French fries could now travel thousands of miles without losing quality, allowing restaurants across the world to serve nearly identical meals every single day. After the Second World War, fast food restaurants spread rapidly across North America before expanding across nearly every continent. At the center of countless meals sat the same familiar companion, the humble potato. From school cafeterias to airport terminals, from village cafes to international restaurant chains, French fries became one of the most recognizable foods on Earth. A crop once confined to mountain terraces had become a universal symbol of convenience and comfort. Yet the potato's modern story fakes far beyond fast food. It appears in chips, mashed potatoes, baked dishes, soups, starches, and countless traditional recipes. Few crops have adapted so completely to the tastes of an entire planet. Every day, billions of potatoes travel through farms, factories, supermarkets, restaurants, and homes. Behind every meal lies an immense global network of growers, scientists, transport workers, and cooks working together to feed humanity. Modern abundance also brings new challenges. Intensive farming, heavy water use, soil degradation, pesticide dependence, and food waste remind us that feeding billions requires careful stewardship of the land that sustains us. Scientists are once again improving the potato, developing varieties that resist disease, tolerate drought, require fewer chemicals, and produce greater harvests. The same spirit of innovation that began in the Andes continues in laboratories and fields around the world. From a wild mountain plant hidden beneath Andean stones to one of the world's most important foods, the potato has journeyed farther than almost any crop in history. It has nourished civilizations, endured famine, inspired science, and shaped everyday life. By the middle of this century, humanity will face one of its greatest challenges, feeding nearly 10 billion people while protecting the planet that feeds us. Once again, the potato stands among the crops that may help meet that challenge. It produces remarkable nutrition from relatively small areas of land, offering hope in a warming and increasingly uncertain world. Ironically, the future of the potato may depend upon its distant past. Deep within the Andes, indigenous communities continue protecting thousands of ancient potato varieties, preserving genetic treasures shaped over thousands of years. These forgotten ancestors may contain the resilience needed to withstand tomorrow's diseases, droughts, and changing climates. The story of the potato is, in many ways, the story of civilization itself. From a wild plant growing among Andean rocks, it nourished empires, crossed oceans, survived prejudice, fueled industry, endured tragedy, and eventually united cultures around the world. Every shared meal reminds us that humanity has always been connected by the plants we choose to cultivate. Civilizations are often remembered through kings, battles, and monuments. Yet history is just as often shaped by the quiet gifts beneath our feet. A humble Andean tuber fed billions, transformed economies, inspired science, and altered the destiny of nations. Not through conquest, but through nourishment. The next time you hold a potato in your hand, remember that you are holding one of the greatest architects of human civilization. Sometimes, the smallest roots leave the deepest footprints in history.